Hello, my name is Professor Sylvester Henderson. I am the CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated. You know, in Professor for Life Incorporated, we interview famous academics and professionals all over the world. And I'm so honored today to be able to interview a special gentleman because he shares my name. We have different spellings. His name is
Good.
Dr. Sylvester White. He is an associate business faculty and author at Sacramento City College. So I want to welcome Dr. White. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. So thank you so much for having me today. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
Yes. Dr. White, can you introduce yourself to our digital media academic world? Tell us where you grew up and please share your academic journey, where you went to college, and all those things.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, my name is Dr. Sylvester White, and I actually served both in the K through 12. Actually, this is my last year in K through 12, as well as I currently teach math at Center High School, as well as business courses at Sacramento City College. I teach business law, business communications, and intro to business. And so just about me, my work is really centered around student access, success rather, beyond just access. So every day I truly work with students who have the ability, have the talent, and the potentials to succeed, but don't always have the support systems in place to help them get there. In terms of schooling, I do have a bachelor's degree in liberal studies with an emphasis in multiple subjects because I thought I wanted to be an elementary school teacher, and but that didn't work out. I realized that was not my forte.
Okay.
And so then I hold an MBA. So I do have an MBA from Western Governors University, and then I have a doctorate degree in education focused around educational leadership and higher ed administration from South College. I was born in San Francisco, and in 1977, my parents decided to move to Sacramento. And so I've pretty much been in the Sacramento, Elk Grove area ever since.
Wow. Dr. White, you sound like a great man who has a great history, and thank you once again for the opportunity to speak with you. Can you describe your work and obligations as an associate professor at Sacramento City College? In addition to teaching the courses, tell us something more in depth about the courses. And I know you work as an equity-driven strategist and book author. So kind of tell us about how your equity work and how your book kind of supports your work as a professor at Sacramento City College.
Sure. So, and it's interesting because today I just received an email that I will be presenting during professional development week, which is the week before the semester during the convocation week. I'll be having the opportunity to expand more on my work because Sacramento City College is really responsible for helping to shape it. I was sitting in a meeting one day as a new member of the faculty, and one of the things that was said was that African American males in particular were not graduating with degrees from our school. And that resonated with me because when I was planning on writing my dissertation for my doctoral program, I was planning to write about school funding and the just how funds were allocated to schools But then this whole thing about African American males not graduating with degrees really struck me, and so that was what really, as I began to investigate that, I just really, because I looked at, actually what I did was I looked at all four of our colleges, because in our district, we actually have four colleges. And that was pretty consistent over all of them, because we have Sacramento City College, we have Folsom Lake College, we have Casitas River College, and we also have American River College. And I noticed that it was pretty consistent across the board. And so that really began to shape my mission. So I wanted to begin to focus on building systems, strategies, and environments that help students persist, right? Graduate and ultimately thrive. So my work is especially focused on supporting students who have historically been underserved, making sure that they don't get that they just don't get into college, but actually succeed once they're there. So this book, From Access to Ascend, really challenges how we think about success in education, right? And so for a long time, we focused on access, getting students in college. But what we haven't put the same level of focus on is what happens after they arrive, right? And the reality is, getting in is only just the first step. So in my book, I try to introduce From Access to Ascend, a framework which focuses on retention, belonging, academic support, and leadership development. So it's really about creating systems that don't just open doors, but actually walk students across the stage to graduation. So especially for me, Black men in higher education, we have to be more intentional about what success looks like and how we support it. So with my work, as you were talking, I look at this, what I call the hidden curriculum. So one of the biggest challenges is sometimes what, like I said, what we call the hidden curriculum. These are the things that that students are expected to know, but no one actually teaches them. How to communicate with professors, how to advocate for yourself, how to manage your time, how to navigate college systems. So in my business courses, in all three of my business courses and in my work at the college, I try to implement intentionally these particular processes, right? And so students who already know these things have an advantage. But for many students, especially first generation students, this becomes a barrier. So if we don't make those expectations visible, then we can't expect students to just figure it out, on their own.
So one of your things that I heard you say, so you're talking a lot of just your textbook. Do you have a copy of the textbook anywhere near you?
I actually, I believe I do. It might be in a bag because I just recently went through. It's online. I mean, it's one of those things that I can,
So
probably.
I guess what we're saying is that you're talking about process after the students are enrolled in the college. You're talking about their communication skills and what the institution or what the professional academics can do to help the students to be more successful. Can you still share a little more information about what that looks like? Let's say student A, his name is Malcolm. He comes into Sac City College and you're his counselor. You're his professor. What are 4 things that you would do for him?
Well, So, so this is kind of where I get into, um, if I could share it this way. So what I try to do is, because I'm looking at systems, right? So I'm not just looking at, ultimately we want them to be successful in the classroom, but we look at all the systems that's advising, mentoring, and we have different programs, the Umoja, A to Men, and different things like that. So one of the ways that I'm beginning to expand my work is what I call a signature institutional plan, and that's where I teach colleges and universities how to take the framework and apply it directly to their campus, right? Because it's not a one size fit all approach. It's tailored to their specific student population and need. So,
Okay.
so this will include strategies that are around retention and student engagement, support services, and aligning, their work with their equity goals. So the goal is to move this from a conversation into something that is structured, sustainable, and impactful. Like one of the things that I really love about City College is one of the things that we do now is like we don't just tell students, hey, go over there and find this department to do this, or go over to the bookstore and do this or whatever. What we do now is the expectation is that we ask the professor, because we're really big on building relationships with our students, we actually walk the student over. We help them with the process. Right. And everybody does it. That includes like my dean for my department, she's excellent at that. Right. And so she's not in her office because she's with a student, somewhere, teaching them, and we do a lot of things at City College. I mean, we even do one of the things that we do, and I know what your question was, but one of the things that we do is like now we provide, so now since we have so many students that are homeless, now what we've done is like our parking garage, like the top two levels of our parking garage are designated for students who are sleeping in their cars. They have Wi-Fi access to be able to do their homework. We also provide security, and different things there to maintain their safety and everything. So because we have to, one of the biggest things that we do and what we find even with our African American students, especially our male students, they have to have that sense of belonging, right? So how are we making the students feel like they belong here, right? So like in my courses, that one of the things that I do is this what is called this culturally responsive teaching. And so I make sure that I want every student in my course to see themselves in the course, right? So I design curriculum where students are able to speak their voice, have their voice, where they're seeing themselves in the work, right? They see themselves in the business world. They see themselves having a voice and having their contribution to the business, to the business world, right? And so one of the things that professors can do is be intentional in, making sure that their curriculum is inclusive of all students, right? And we find that many students, because one of the things that one of the assignments that I do is they have to find a business that is ran or owned by a culture that's different from theirs,
Okay.
right? So now you gotta find that this business that's different from your own culture, and understand the dynamics and what goes, into this business, and what they find, what our students, which is going over extremely well. Students come back and say, "Oh, I didn't realize that," or "I didn't see it from that perspective." So we see that students just they really feel. One of the big things I get on my reviews every year is that they say that I do a great job in building a sense of community in my classes. And that's really big, and students really love that, and accept that.
Well, Dr. White, how does your equity-based work support the mission of Sac City College, the overall mission? And you've answered some of it already, but I would like to know still even more specifically, how does your equity-based work in your classroom support? How does your instructional teaching help to culminate the mission of Sacramento City College?
Sure. So Sacramento City College we are known as the People's College, right? That is our, that is our mission. So our mission is equity. I mean, we talk about equity. I mean, we have groups in place. We just became designated as a African American serving institution. Mm-hmm. We've already had the designation for the Hispanic serving institution and different things like that. So my work is really based upon the mission of Sac City College, right? Where we are building connections, we're building partnerships. That's even in the community, with churches, with organizations, different things like that. So my equity work is connecting my students with the local community.
Okay.
Right? And so understanding that we have to know and understand that we're here to serve one another, right? We're here to respect one another. That yes, we have the differences. Let's celebrate the differences. And how do we, and celebrating the differences, we grow and we become more well-rounded when we allow ourselves to have these interactions, the exchange, where we're learning from one another. So in my group work, for instance, I'm fulfilling the mission of equity by being intentional as I'm connecting groups with different cultures, with different people, where they are communicating with one another, and they're learning to understand one another. They're also having to communicate with one another, even as they're working through maybe some differences, so they're learning how to just how to interact, right? Because we need to know as we move about in our society of how to work with one another and how to accept one another. And so I'm really intentional in fulfilling the mission of our equity work of serving all students and allowing all students to have a voice in the process, right? And so, and that's I'm super big on that, and I just don't, and I'm not just that way even at the collegiate level. I'm that way even in my high school work, as I'm dealing with my students in my math courses. So everybody gets that opportunity. I'm trying to train my high schoolers before they even get to college.
Okay. You know what? Thank you for sharing your wonderful passion. You hold many hats. You work as a professor, you work as an author, as an equity-driven strategist, And you also have artistic leadership. How will your role as the returning or new minister of music at the Antioch Baptist Church in Sacramento, California, help you connect your faith-based leadership with your commitment for advocating for equity?
Sure. So one of the missions of our church, of my church, the Antioch Progressive Church, our mission is to meet the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs of the community, right? And so, and that means, so it doesn't matter, right? So we're striving to be a diverse church, because we believe, in our faith, that all people, no matter what your race, creed, color, everybody is in need of a savior, right? And
Right.
what I'm hoping and to do is, when it comes to, and as I talked earlier about the whole hidden curriculum, different things like that. So what I'm hoping to do within our church is, we have this whole education. We have this whole, our building was specifically designed to be an educational center, right? So where we are providing resources and things to people within the community. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be doing, even through my work, even though I'm going to be serving, as the worship director of the church, but I'm also will be fulfilling my role as an educator by providing resources to parents and children in the community, equipping them for college work, or even if they want to go off and do even some trades, go through trade schooling, but really trying to help our young people to be successful in whatever they choose to do.
So the Antioch Progressive Church, of which you are a part of, really works hard at using faith-based principles in order of showing a more equitable love for everyone.
For everyone.
And that's a good thing. Let me ask you this question, Dr. White. Who influenced you to want to become an academic professor, and who influenced you to want to become an author?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I've always, growing up, I will say this, growing up in my church, and I grew up at the St. Paul Baptist Church here in Sacramento, under the late Dr. Ephraim Williams. Dr. Ephraim Williams was a man who was passionate, and I mean passionate, about education. And his whole thing was, we just knew, you graduated from high school, you going to college. That's just what you do, and he would give all of us graduating seniors, he gave us $250, right? Each one of us got $250 towards school. So from there, but I wanted to say, in this church, I was surrounded by educators. So everyone that was pretty much a part of our music ministry, our music director was a fourth grade teacher. Our children director for the children's choir, she was a school principal. The assistant music director was a substitute teacher. We also, our other musician as well, the late Dwayne Kennedy, he worked in the school system. Elette Rich Chambers, she was a she taught music, at one of the all girls school. So I was just surrounded by educators,
Okay.
right? So it was just, and it was just like, so I told Miss Larry, Velma Larry, because she was the music director, but she was also my music teacher. So she's the one who set me down, taught me how to read music, taught me how to teach parts to the choir, and she wouldn't release me until I was ready, right? And she was, but she was just an educator. She was passionate about education, and I was like, okay, I think I want to do this whole thing. I think I just want to go into education. So it's just a passion of mine. And then I remember before going into education, I worked for the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I remember one of the managers and I was having lunch one day, and he took me to three schools in his neighborhood, and he told me, he said, I don't know why I'm bringing you to these schools, but I'm feeling led to bring you to these schools. And he was saying, you are being called to educate. You're being called to educate, the world. And it's just gone, and it's just from there. And then my dad is just an avid learner. He'll be 79 this year, and he is always learning. He's always reading. He's always gaining information, and so constantly growing. So I would have to say my dad, Miss Larry, Dr. Williams, and all the musicians that I was surrounded. Even my best friend now, he never thought that he was going to be an educator, and now here he is, the dean, at North Central in Minnesota now as a teacher, as an educator as well. So I'm just surrounded, by it. But I really do believe that it's something that I have truly been called to do.
And as an author, I know you talked earlier about the fact that this kind of came out of the awareness that many African American males were not graduating from the Los Rios Community College District, basically. They were coming and taking courses, but they were not succeeding with a culminating degree in order to transfer or to do whatever. And so I heard you tell us your reasons for that. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about some of the challenges that you faced as a man of color in higher education?
Well, I think the for me the challenge, and I think for me as a man of color in higher ed is I'll be very honest. I have to work harder. I do. I have to work harder because oftentimes, how can I answer this question? Oftentimes, the reason why I got a doctorate degree is because I want to be able to sit at the table, right? So I said, I believe that having the doctorate degree will open the door, right? Because when I started at Sac City College, I didn't have a doctorate degree, just had the master's degree teaching business courses. And so I said, well, you know what? I want to be able to sit at the table making a difference, right? Because eventually I would like to get into doing some policy reform, writing and different things like that. So the challenge that I find is, when I'm sitting at the table and I'm hearing some of the remarks from others, I'm having to challenge challenge what's being said and to give a different perspective on how to see it or how to look at it. Because the reality of it is, we have some professors that don't believe that African American males can learn, and so I'm having to let them know, yes, they can learn. What we have to do is, let's take a look at our approach, because sometimes what we don't realize is that a lot of communication, because I teach this, is that our mannerisms, how we present ourselves, how we say things, it can communicate louder than words.
That's right.
And so sometimes, so that's my challenge, is being able to work through the nonverbal communication.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you're able to know how to address that, how to understand that, and you have to be willing. For me, what I do is I try to be understanding of where people are. And because I am an educator, I have to begin to present information and things that will help to challenge their thinking, which that I would, because I also have a reflection journal for professors that challenges their thinking or their perception, and it challenges them because it forces you to take a look at you. What are your biases? What are your beliefs? And do so. What needs to change within you? That could help you better serve other people.
Wow.
And so, because you have to, because I believe we all have biases. We may not,
Really?
we may not say it, but we all have them. And so we have, so somewhere here we got to be challenged to work through those biases. I have, like I said, I have this reflective journal that's designed to challenge you with some actual plans, right? So, you realize you have this bias towards these people, or this or that. Now, how are we going to work through that, so that we can better serve other people? Because I see it all the time, that people, they have this, these people can't learn this, but they really can.
Absolutely.
And so that's what my challenge as I'm doing this work, and still growing. I'm still growing. I'm still developing. I'm still figuring out who I am. I'm still learning to sit with, because I'm not I'm not a person that likes to brag, and I don't like to really put myself out there. So I'm having to, one of my challenges is being able to step up and say, hey, let's look at this.
Okay.
And let's work through this, and having to say that in a way that's non-threatening, and that I'm genuinely concerned just about how we can be better as professors, as educators, that will hopefully stem into our regular everyday life, not just when we're in the classroom.
Well, Dr. White, you are sharing a lot of critical and essential information. I have two more questions just to ask before we conclude our podcast interview. What community work have you accomplished for the improvement of the protected classes with respect to the current DEI national struggle? Because there's a big struggle going on in the world about DEI, the value of it, and that kind of leads us into a political divide between the Republicans believe one principle, the Democrats believe another, and it's kind of found in the way in which humans view their lives. So I'm just kind of curious in terms of what work have you accomplished in trying to improve equity-driven principles and life for just people and students in general around this struggle, because this is a huge struggle.
It is. It is. Yeah. So one of the things that I worked on is what is called what it's called T for E, and that's Teach for Equity. And
Okay.
So that is one particular program that I have been able to work with. The something else that I've done was what is called Watchdogs, right? And Watchdogs is a program where we're able to get African American men, fathers, uncles, into our schools, into classrooms, working with students, working with working with students, also creating safe space for students to be able to come to school as well. I am still in the process of really trying to, I'm intentional. One of the things that the late Sherwood Carthen said to me, and I'll never forget it. He says, when you walk into a room, he says, I want you to think multicultural, making sure that everyone, be intentional in making sure that you have representation from everyone. I guess we just have to know how to navigate. We just need to know how to play the system, to be able to get where we need to be, and not to give up, So I will give a little hint to this. What I'm getting ready to work on is I'm trying to I'm planning to run for school board. So that's my next goal, and I'm probably going to try to do that in 2028 because I think I missed the deadline, for this year. So I'm going to plan for 2028 to run for school board. Next thing, probably city council. So I have a plan, to strategically place myself in such a way, to help us, right? But I also, like I said, I need to be able to educate, to say this is what we need to do. I do this with my own. I have 4 kids. I had to teach them. Well, they're all adults now, but I'm having to teach them how to navigate the system, and they're all doing well, learning just how to navigate the system, to get into the necessary spaces, that are needed.
Okay.
For us to be.
Well, Dr. White, I want to thank you. It was such a joy hearing you answer your questions, because one of the things that came through very clearly were 2 words: commitment and passion.
Yeah.
You're very passionate about what you do, and you're very committed. Or do you have any other thoughts you would like to share with our digital community, or thoughts you would like to communicate?
Well, sure. If I could just, just say, as we get ready to close out, let me first of all thank you for this opportunity to be able to do this. I will say this. I just want to be able to to leave it with this. Access opens the door, but support determines who walks across the stage. I've seen what happens when students are supported. I've seen what happens when they're not. We have the ability to change that, and that's why this work that I'm really trying to do is why it matters, because it makes a difference. It truly does make a difference. So.
Well, Dr. White, you have shared access today. You have shared information, access, and not only, you talked clearly about different plans and processes. As the CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to allow us to interview you and to share your perspective with the world. You are a very distinguished gentleman, and I thank you once again, and I wish nothing but wonderful blessings and Godspeed to you, your family, especially on this wonderful weekend. Happy Easter to you and your family. God bless you, and we hope to be talking to you soon.
Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for this.
God bless you. Bye-bye now.
Bless you.